They were the boxes detectives slid to the back of the shelf. Bones that washed ashore for 150 years, teenage sweethearts shot on a dirt road, a baby wrapped in a Garfield towel. A war hero who spent half his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Every one of those stories ended with a shrug until this year. Labs you've never heard of scraped together DNA samples smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. Suddenly the dead could speak. Killers got handcuffed at bingo night. A Canadian family finally carved their ancestors' name on a seaside memorial. Stick around for number 1 because the oldest cold case ever solved will scramble everything you thought you knew about time and evidence. Let's rip the lid off. The Peacock Murders. George and Catherine Peacock liked quiet Vermont mornings, black coffee. 2 days after a neighbor waved hello, both were found in separate patches of woods. Each shot with the same .22 caliber. Detectives chased 300 tips, even dug up the wrong suspect, then shelved the case. 33 years later, a lab tech spots a rust-colored fleck on a seat bolt thread. Inside, just 1.2 nanograms of DNA, lighter than a grain of pollen. S&P mapping sketches a genome. Genealogists grow a 14,000-person family tree. And a Pacific Northwest mill worker lands in the crosshairs. One discarded coffee cup later. Perfect match. February 2025, he pleads guilty to both murders. The prosecutor signs off with a chilling line. Science waited longer than justice did. Baby Garin Identified in 1996. A road crew opened a purple cooler on I-65 in Indiana. Inside, a newborn boy, swaddled in Garfield fabric. No footprints, no note, just that grinning cartoon cat staring back at the cameras. The press called him Baby Garren. The case went cold before the asphalt was repaved. But decades later, forensic startup Othram pulls DNA from a tiny rib fragment, no bigger than a fingernail. They upload the profile to a genealogy site. 6 weeks of cousin matching point to a rural Kentucky town. A woman estranged from her niece gives a swab. Dad is traced through old Army payroll. He confesses. May 2025. Baby Garren is buried under his real name Elijah with Garfield and a DNA helix etched side by side on the stone. The sheriff now keeps a folding chair and evidence. A handwritten label taped to the back reads, "For anyone who thinks we forget." The Double-Helix Serial Mystery. 2 Catherines, 2 counties, 2 months apart in 1995. Both strangled. Both linked by DNA but no match in any database. Detectives hypnotized witnesses, chased 1,800 dead ends, and finally gave up. 30 years later, scientists extract touch DNA from a nylon cord. Not only 60% of markers intact, but whole genome amplification revives the fragments. A second cousin surfaces online, chatting about Acadian roots. One genealogical sprint later, detectives target a traveling salesman with a trail of duas. They swab his grocery cart handle. The DNA lines up like dominoes. In March 2025. The jury takes 46 minutes to convict. The lead detective walks out and says, "The dead testified today," and the jury listened. The Exoneration of Stanley Huong. Stanley Huong was 24 when a Philadelphia jury said he raped and murdered a night shift nurse. The evidence? A shaky eyewitness and hair under a microscope. He spent the next 38 years in prison, writing appeal after appeal from his cell. In 2025, the Innocence Project reopened the evidence box, a semen-stained swatch, 3-person DNA mixture. YSTR sequencing strips Stanley out and reveals a foreign profile. Genealogists trace it to a man who died in a halfway house in 2011. A preserved liver biopsy clinches the match. Stanley, now 62, steps into freedom for the first time since cassette tapes ruled the charts. The district attorney apologizes. Certainty without science is just arrogance in a robe. Captain Henry Goodsell mystery. Between 1844 and 1890, beachcombers along New Jersey kept finding bones. A skull here, a femur there. Locals called him Scattered Man John Doe. In 2025, forensic anthropologists grind powder from the petrous bone of his skull. They sequence 850,000 SNPs and upload them into a genealogy database. The Y haplogroup points to Kent, England. Church scribes help confirm the name. Captain Henry Goodsell, master of the schooner Nancy Lee, lost in a nor'easter on December 3, 1844. Descendants in Canada bring letters he wrote days before the wreck. This September, the shoreline ceremony returned a handful of bone to the Atlantic. The plaque reads, "He guided ships till the sea guided him home." 181 years in the making, Goodsell becomes the oldest unidentified person ever named by DNA. The lead anthropologist closes the file. Time just lost its perfect alibi. If these 5 breakthroughs flipped your idea of what's possible, hit subscribe. I chase fresh forensic stories every month. Drop a comment. Which of these cases deserves its own full documentary? And share this with the friend who still says, "We'll never know," because in 2025, Unsolvable keeps turning into uploaded, analyzed, answered. This is Unsolved Mysteries with the end. The next mystery is already waiting.